in 2022, I buy myself a lot of second label.
Aha.
Yes, especially this from Palmer. When we came home from the tasting room, one of the greatest Austrian taster,
Yes. Peter.
bought directly 2 cases of the second label. I said, okay, it's that price. So interesting. Yeah.
That's a great buy for our audience. A little insight into buy strategy, the second label of Palmer.
Welcome to another episode of On the Road Edition, hosted by Stevie Kim. Each week, Stevie travels to incredible wine destinations, interviewing some of the Italian wine scene's most interesting personalities, talking about wines, the foods, as well as the incredible travel destinations.
My name's Stevie Kim, and this is Italian Wine Podcast. Welcome back to our Bordeaux series with Bernard Burtschy. We have covered the upper northern part, Saint-Estève-Pauillac and Saint-Julien. We did the first groats, the 5 first groats, and this we're going to be covering Margaux, Haut-Médoc, and Pessac. So let's start with Margaux. Of course, the first growth is Château Margaux. We have covered that on our previous series. Now, we have been to Château Palmer, Marquis
d'Alembert, that is difficult.
It's difficult. Gisco, and you did a whole Margaux tasting.
Yes.
So give us an overview of the Margaux 2022 vintage.
Margaux is a big appellation with 1,200 hectares, 4 or 5 villages, very different, and 2 different wines. This first style is Château Margaux.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So smooth.
Yes. Château Margaux with a lot of cabs, okay, and that is the reason perhaps his first growth. And the second style is Palmer with half cabs but half Merlot, and completely different. That is very interesting. The same appellation. Right. Okay. Margaux is a cabs-driven wine, but more smoothness because that is Margaux. And in Palmer, you have in one hand the cabs, in the other hand the Merlot. And you have a conversation between both. And 1 year it's more cabs, and 1 year it's more Merlot. Merlot is always smoother. Cabs, it's a bit harsher. And the reason we don't really explain, especially for a scientist as me, the blend, because the both parts is very interesting. It's greater than each. If you have the cabs alone or the Merlot, it's a good wine. But when you blend both,
right,
it's a great wine.
So it becomes more magical in the blend.
Yes. And in Palmer, you have 2 wines because you have the green wine that is on gravels. And the second wine is Alter Ego, but it's more sandy soil, that is lighter. And this year, the second wine is very interesting too, because usually what we don't understand exactly, because 2022 is a warm vintage. And usually in the sandy soil, you have not enough water because you have less water retention. But in Palmer, that works. And that works since 2 or 3 centuries. And what's incredible, it was how they discovered that. Okay, because it's completely crazy to mix both. And that is the Palmer. The big collection of Palmer was the Queen
of England.
When all the great 61, 59 are in England, in the cellar of the Queen. She was a Palmer lover. Okay, but I can understand because it's so special. In Château Margaux, it's more classic because it's cabs driven. Of course, you have more smoothness and so on. It's a special because you have 3 styles in Pauillac, and the 4th style of cabs is Château Margaux. But Palmer, you have this blend between the power and the smoothness, and you have spicy aromas are coming with the blend. We don't know why, but very interesting with a small smokiness, and it's always charming. That is Palmer.
But, you spoke about the second label. So for our audience, would it be advisable if they're interested in this big big name wines, but they can't afford it. Is it a good idea to invest in and taste the second label? Does that make sense?
Yes, that is a real great question, especially for the vintage 2022. Because 2022, it's a great vintage, and the second label, it's a great wine. Perhaps better than the first label in other vintages.
Oh, really?
Yes, and in 2022, I buy myself a lot of second label.
Aha.
Yes, especially this von Palmer. When we came home from the tasting room, one of the greatest Austrian taster,
Yes. Peter?
yeah, bought directly 2 cases of the second label. I said, okay, it's that price. So interesting. Yeah.
That's a great buy for our audience. A little insight into buy strategy, the second label of Palmer. Okay, and then what about Haut-Médoc? We've been to, for example, Château Cantmel in Haut-Médoc.
To understand Haut-Médoc, but you have Margaux, Saint-Julien, Pauillac, Saint-Estèphe. Big villages. But the terroir doesn't stop on the frontier of the village. And just before, especially coming from Bordeaux to Margaux, you have a very special place. The name is Haut-Médoc, and in the Haut-Médoc we'll say that it's exactly the same terroir as in Margaux and so on, but it's not Margaux. And this part makes always less power, lighter wines. It's not a default. And because the terroir is lighter and perhaps easier to drink, because usually all the Médoc wine are a lot of density. And this one, they are less density. They are more harmonious. Okay, and it's a very interesting place to begin because you have the Médoc, but with lower weight, because usually the Médoc wine have a lot of density, a lot of tannins and so on. That is lighter. And Cantmer, it's a very nice place, and they make elegant, but with less power wines. That is the Haut-Médoc, the classified growth from Haut-Médoc. They are in the same level as the other classified growth, but completely different style, lighter, and it's always a good way to begin because they're cheaper.
So would this be a good place for example, Americans who prefer lighter wine? But that is kind of the new trend right now, not just for Americans. In general, people prefer to have lighter wines, and especially if it's good value.
Yes. That is the case of Cantmer.
So it can be interesting to try the Haut-Médoc wines. Mm-hmm. Very good. Now, of course, tell us why in Pessac there is Haut-Brion in the classified.
Yeah. The terroir of Pessac and the terroir of Haut-Médoc after Bordeaux is the same. The town is in the middle. It was bigger and bigger. And today there are a lot of great terroirs, there are houses, but before there were wines. And today Haut-Brion is inside the town of Pessac. Around you have a lot of small houses.
Because Pessac-Léognan is another appellation.
Yes, Pessac-Léognan is another appellation. But not exactly the same style as Margaux, because we are more in the south. The terroirs are lighter, closer to the Haut-Médoc we had, like as Cantmer. And it's a good, when you are beginner, it's a good way to begin with Pessac-Léognan. Because you have not the density, you have not the power of Médoc wine. It's always more harmonious, and usually you have a blend of the grapes between Cabernet Franc, which is elegant, Merlot, and so on. And it's a good way to begin.
Okay, very good. So we have good 2 areas, appellations to recommend for the beginners. That's Haut-Médoc and Pessac.
Yes.
So very good. That concludes the Bordeaux journey for Margaux, Haut-Médoc, and Pessac with some extra bonus buying strategies for especially wine lovers out there. And that's a wrap for today. Stay with us as we continue into Sauternes and Barsac.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of On the Road Edition, hosted by Stevie Kim. Join her again next week for more interesting content on the Italian wine scene. You can also find us at ItalianWinePodcast.com or wherever you get your pods. You can check out our YouTube channel, Mama Jumbo Shrimp, to watch these interviews and the footage captured at each location. Ching ching!